I'm in Maia, Portugal for a 9-round chess tournament, second year in a row. I don't know if you remember the recaps from last year, but here I am again. And for the first recap, I couldn't find a cornfield patch, obviously, so we're gonna go through with the recap. Today, I played an astounding player. When walking to the analysis room after the game, he blurted out that he beat Michael Tal and Victor Korchnoi in the space of 20 days. That is Juan Manuel Belon Lopez. He is the father of Anna Cramling and the husband of Pia Cramling. Crazy. I got to play the best one of the family. And no less, coincidentally, I played him in Blitz with the black pieces, the same colors the day prior on the Blitz cruise in the same chess festival event. Crazy. So I already kind of knew what he played, and I didn't prep because between us, I left my computer in the tournament hall to charge, and so I didn't prep. So D4, I went with D5, same as yesterday. The game is identical to our game in the final round in the Blitz Cruise, which I was leading. I was leading that tournament after 4 rounds. He goes with a Cole system. So the Kali, the Cole, however you want to say it, is when white develops very modestly with just like a simple development, simple castling, same side castling, and then just goes for an attack. In the Cruise, I went with knight d7, preventing this knight e5. And like, he never went knight e5. But in the game, in our classical game, I go bishop e7, castles, and then he goes knight d2. And I said, you know what? I want to be a step ahead of this guy. Because I remember in our Blitz game yesterday, I played this, and he actually managed to get e4 in, which is a good break in the center for the white pieces. So I said, okay, let's just be ahead of time and learn from our lessons, because I did lose that game in the Blitz Cruise. And I play b6. Now, I want to talk to you about an opportunity that comes once in a lifetime. If I win this game, my Fisher number is a crazy 3. Let me explain. The Fisher number is how many people does it take that you beat one to get to Fisher. So for example, if I beat Juan Manuel Lopez, he beat Michael Tal, and then Tal beat Fisher, then my Fisher number would be 3, which is like a crazy Fisher number. I think my Fisher number right now is like maybe 5 or 6, so I could like half my Fisher number, which is a crazy flex in the chess world. If you know, you know. Anyways, now he goes knight e5. He surprises me because he's kind of punishing this knight d7 that wasn't played, because now I would just trade and he would be forced to take with his d-pawn, attacking my knight. So I can't really do it now because there's knight c6, which is kind of ugly, and I lose the bishop pair, and it's just an ugly position. So I just have to go through with my plan and just believe that this is just equality. So I go bishop e7, and I'm just completely playing against this e4, and now he goes with this f4 after a very long turn. He took like 12 minutes. This is the first time of the game he actually thought and not played me as if he was blindfolded. So I felt kind of relieved that he was not just gonna blitz every move of the game. So now he plays f4, and it's pretty serious. He's threatening queen f3, and I never have this e4 square, which is usually what I have for myself. And so I have to take the opportunity to take the center with knight e4. And now he plays this move immediately. So he takes time for f4. I think he's gonna take more time. Maybe he's gonna try to pressure my knight with queen f3. Maybe he's gonna play an ambitious move with queen h5. He goes with c4. I didn't expect this. Okay, for simple reasons, I cannot take the pawn, right? Because my knight is just hanging here on e4, bishop takes. So I have like a choice. Jakob Agard, who is one of the greatest coaches in the world, really changed my life here, because he said when you're weighing 2 opportunities, calculate and evaluate both, and then compare them, and then choose the move that you prefer, that you like best. So I was thinking between f5 and f6 and knight d7, and between all of them, at the end I was like, well then f6 is just the best, because I'm attacking this knight, so it saves me, like let's say knight f3, I go f5, knight e5, and it saves me a full move. Like now I get knight f5 in, and I get f5 in, and it's my turn. So I was very happy to see f6 actually. My opponent takes here after a very long turn, sacrificing a piece. And something I didn't tell you about our Juan here is that he is an extremely aggressive player. He plays the most aggressive and tactical possible. He presses the opponent, and in sometimes a dubious way, and if the opponent resists and even counterplays and beats him, he's all right with that. And that's the way he plays chess, which is a really crazy way. There's no safety involved in his play. But this is very sound. C takes d5 is very sound. So, I have some choices once again, and I do the Yakubagad. I take here, option number 1. I take here, option number 2. I take here, option number 3. I looked at these for so long. Finally, I decided this is the only pitfall, because queen here, and now g6, and this actually wins for the white pieces. So after c takes d5, I take this knight. I didn't like this. It transposes, it's a little weaker in my opinion. So I took the knight, and now he takes my knight, and I take his pawn. It's crazy. And here I really thought that white was gonna play this. Queen b3, pinning my pawn. So I can't take the knight, but then king moves and I reignite the knight, and then knight c5. So like using the pin of this pawn, once again another pin to be annoying. But then I thought after takes, pawn moves, bishop here, that I'm fine here after like c6. Oh, the engine even says trade off the bishop pair and keep this bishop terrible for the rest of the game. Impressive. And also, once the bishop trades, this is pressured. And this is like really nice, because after takes, I can get c5, d4 in, or even knight c5, knight d3 in, beautiful things. So I was ready to go into this, but then he shocks me again. He goes knight g3, and I'm like, whoa. So knight g3, and he told me in the analysis room, the knight needs to be like around the king. He doesn't want the knight like just out of play like this, which I kind of agree with. So I go e4, smash that nice square in with my pawn, make this bishop bad, be happy. And I was so expecting bishop e2, because this bishop looks like a monster, not there, here on g4, where it can just like totally invade my position from the west side of the board. And after the game, I said, this is a bad move to him. I said this, like, I don't care. Like, I'm ready to be wrong if I am wrong, but I will speak my mind to the GM, who has like 50 years experience over me. And he says, no, this is a good move. This is a good move because I have to attack your pawn structure like this. And actually, I'm trying to be humble here. The engine agrees with me that this is a bad move. So I go with c5, just punching in that center. Crazy. And there's so many tricks here. For example, if takes, bishop takes, Juan had prepared b4 here. Wow. After bishop takes, he thought I have bishop takes here. That's what he said to me after the game. And when I take, then it opens up the diagonal to win back this bishop. Crazy. So I take with the pawn, and now he stuns me. And I realized it after, but it took me some time to realize what he was going after. He plays b4. Breaking my pawn structure, breaking my control over the lovely d4 square, which will be used to play d4 myself. And now I dive into a deep think. Obviously, like, if I go c4, I give him the benefits of the b4 move without taking the pawn. So after a little bit of time, I take this pawn here. I took like 5-6 minutes. But then he surprises me again, he goes a3. What does this remind you of? For my experienced chess players who play a lot of openings, what opening does this remind you of? And it stunned me when I realized it after a3 was clear to me. This is a reverse Benko Gambit. He has observed that we have a reversed Benoni structure, and he has decided to sacrifice a pawn. He's very confident, by the way. He played b4, a3 on the board. Kind of scary, I'm not gonna lie. And I have to kind of play against this. a3 is an inaccuracy, but b4 was the best move by the engine by far. It says equality. If white wants equality, b4 you have to break the pawn structure. And it took a long time. Again, I used Yakubagad's way to decide on a move. I looked at knight c6, which I later found out just blunders. In the game, I decided not to play it because of bishop e3. It's so lethal, it attacks 2 pawns at once because this pawn is pinned here. So e4 is hanging. And yeah, I was thinking about also this and knight a6. Knight a6 is the best move. No, a5 is the best move here. Knight a6 is actually the best move on the previous turn. Knight a6 here. So surprising, found out by the engine after. So I go a5. after a long time. I also thought of knight d7, it was not like working. But I have a big problem. I am underdeveloped on my queen side. And this is a source for his, what we call compensation in chess, because he gave me a pawn. He gambited a pawn to me. So I have a pawn up, but he has an advancement in development. So he has more activity of his pieces, he has more flexibility, and I am kind of constrained to having to develop this knight in the next moves, which is really not obvious. If I develop it here, my bishop is not defending this weak pawn anymore. If I develop it here, my queen is not developing this pawn anymore. So usually I would actually have to go like this if God is willing, like really. So he goes bishop b2. The engine comes up with a smart reply, I thought. Just waste white's time and take here now. And waste a move from this bishop. Would have been so sick. But I went with bishop f6. Again, there are tricks here. But I have to trade off this bishop because queen g4 is coming in and I was very, very scared about this. And otherwise, knight h5 is also an idea. I was also scared about this, all before bishop f6, of course. So he takes, and now if I take with my rook, which I don't want to do anyways, but still, this blunders a pawn, so I have to watch out for tricks. I take with my queen, and then he goes bishop b3. He attacks this pawn, and now white gains a small edge. Like bishop f6 was a bad move. Instead of bishop f6, I should have calmed down the position and played knight a6 if my memory stands. Yeah, knight a6 here. And I prepare to take back this pawn with my knight, actually. And now this is -1 if I get to do this. So that's kind of crazy. The knight goes to a6, might go to c5, might go to d3 in the future. But no, after queen takes and bishop here, the pressure exerted on this pawn and the pressure exerted on this pawn, a pattern that we've seen, is mounting. And I only found one move here that really defends, and it's king h8. So I'm getting out of the pin so that the knights cannot take on e4. And if you were to take on d5, I'm not defending this, but I'm preparing a small tactic, rook d8. And now the engine kind of spat in my face when I went to my hotel room. Bellon did not see this at all. If he would have seen this, he would have played it, but he kind of respected my tactic here with rook d8 and probably did not calculate that much further than me because I saw bishop takes b7, rook takes queen, rook takes rook, and then rook a7 attacking this bishop. And I thought to myself, there's no back rank mate, I'm fine. Oh, how innocent. There's rook ac1 here. And this is, I finished my calculation here, done, right? I'm good, I'm winning. Rook ac1 is completely winning for white. I don't have a square for my knight. Back rank mate is threatened. I will have to give up my knight. And white will have sufficient material added on by this pawn here that's falling on e4 to win. Like, this is just winning. So none of us saw this, and actually he respected my thing. He traded once and went rook c1. Rook c1 is good, because rook c1, if you remember from 30 seconds ago, that rook makes checkmate. So he's actually threatening bishop takes d5 now. This tactic doesn't work anymore. So I play the logical move, and now I'm advantageous. Against the grandmaster, I'm up a pawn clear, says the engine. Because I've managed my goal. I can push d4 now. Huge. If I get to break this pawn structure, if my pawn gets to be a protected passed pawn by my bishop, if my bishop gets to open up on this king, white can be in serious trouble. On top of that, this rook can enter on a3 when this bishop is not defended. We have ingredients to convert this passed pawn advantage. Also, if this bishop gets out of this square, if this queen gets out of this square, this is a passed pawn made to order. Crazy. So rook d8, threatening this d4, and losing would be like queen here, right, to prevent d4, because I just trade, and then knight c6, and then this is kind of hanging. So he goes with rook f2, and he said after the game, I hate this move. We looked at f5, actually, it was a very interesting move. Still bad. I have knight d7, just like chilling, and he actually found this move for me in the analysis room, and he said that after knight here, queen e5, and that's the e5 square he gave, this is why he chose not to play f5, because I'm completely controlling this, and my queen is so centralized and so solid, it's a shame. So he goes with this move. He was really not happy about this. He said to me after the game, he was really not happy about this move. Now I go d4. Dynamism in the position. It works, it's good, we go for it. But e takes d4, and I miss kind of a big thing, a big opportunity. Engine says -3. It's kind of an engine move. It's findable for the right reasons. It's purely positional. It's kind of not my style, but it's really dynamic. E3, completely unmaterialistic and fully going for the squares, attacking this rook. And now after rook here, we don't take this pawn now, but the engine wants this crazy knight development on now a weak square. This is a pawn that's falling. It doesn't matter if you play d5, the knight comes in. And you just go for dynamism, and eventually these pieces are too strong. Like I'm hitting so many things, and the engine says -3, flat out, -2.96 to be exact. But I took with the rook because I'm human. If queen takes, we both agreed it was very ugly. It's not a good endgame. But rook takes is good because now, if rook d2, I get knight c6 in, defending this, and these tactics don't work. So we both calculated this very long desperado, and at the end of this, I'm just up the exchange. We both saw this crazy variation. It didn't happen because obviously he's a GM, but it validates this because now I can defend my rook. And after rook takes, queen takes with check. Now I want a queen trade because this endgame is thoroughly winning because of my knight here. You cannot take this pawn, 1, because the bishop hangs, and 2, because the rook hangs with a fork. And I'm attacking this bishop, and e3 is coming in, and b3 is coming in. It's completely over. I'm not even going to talk about it more. So he can't go with rook d2, which is kind of the idea of the rook lift rook f2. And so now this rook is kind of looking clownish on f2. And this speaks to the lack of coordination between the black pieces. Now, I'm not one to talk, because obviously, but, you know, if white was perfectly coordinated, white would have full compensation for the pawn, but they're not. So queen e1. Queen e1, best move. Crazy find. On queen e2, I was prepared to play like bishop a6, bishop d3. And I reckon this is maybe over, positionally, anyways. So queen here, and I'm thinking of different moves. And this is a mistake that we need to learn from, because I look at a really good move, which is queen b6. Oh no, I play knight d7. Okay, knight f1. Knight f1 is the mistake. He tries to go knight e3, which is a grandmaster type of ideology to block a passed pawn. So he goes for this, but he's undeveloping this knight, and the pressure on this pawn is no more. So it kind of gives me a free hand to play positionally, construct my position. It gives me 2 moves. And this is the mistake that I was talking about. So here I find a perfectly good move, queen b6, and I go like, I'm uplifting this knight c5, and the knight is going to be a monster, and it's probably winning for black objectively, if I play perfectly. And I should just go for it, and I'm not even seeing a good move for the white pieces. And then I see a sexy move, rook d3, attacking the bishop, threatening e3, and also clearing the square for the queen. And I just like completely miss my opponent's counterplay. I looked at rook d3, I thought this bishop is forced to move, bishop down to c2, and then I have rook c3, and then this pawn is going down the board, and I was very happy with this. And then I'm just like, oh my god, I blundered. Like how did I do that? The position is -2 on a soft engine. On a deep engine, it's probably -3. If I play h6 to free some space for my king, you'll see in the later stages of this game, we saw a little bit of back rank tactics on my king earlier in the game. There are so many more back rank issues for my king coming up that h6 here would have been an absolute blessing and a dream. Yeah, I was on the money. I was on the money, but I fainted. Rook d3, and he plays it almost immediately. He took a minute, queen takes b4. The queen takes and defends the bishop. It's kind of a low-level blunder, but you're in a chess game and you need to just get that mentality. I'm finishing this game with the best moves possible. I'm not letting go. And you can't betray yourself by trying to punish yourself and trying to lose the game later on in this game because of your one mistake. That's not chess. Chess is trying to play the best move every move and trying to take every position objectively. So I go rook b8, threatening some tactics, but not much. Because let's say if I do a tactic on this diagonal, queen takes rook, knight takes queen, and then rook c8 is checkmate here. So like bishop g8, and then rook takes g8, guided by this bishop. So like I don't have many tactics. I only have tactics with bishop a6, still guarding this c8 square. So he goes bishop c2, and now I play a move that's fun. Obviously, you clicked on this video for a reason. I sacrificed my queen against Juan Manuel Belon Lopez. But that's not all. I also sacrificed the rook. So like the video because I gave you more than you came for. I played e3 here. What a move! Chess.com doesn't give it a brilliant move, but I'll put a brilliant move in the thumbnail because I feel like it. It's a crazy move. On bishop takes, I'm not gonna lie to you, my calculation was quite poor. I had pawn takes. If the king goes here, now I can take on g2 with check, discovered attack. Because on the back end, like king takes, and like rook takes here, rook c8 check, and I have knight f8 to just defend and I'm winning. So king takes, and now we have, okay, so in the game, I was like, I'm gonna play this and pick up the rook. And I said this to him in the analysis room, embarrassed myself in front of Juan Manuel Belon Lopez and in front of Grandmaster Victor Michalewski, who was watching over the game. But Juan actually says here, King f2 is still force. He says here, black has one winning move, and he's right. It's bishop a6, covering the c8 square as we said before. So there's no back rank checkmate, and now this is just a double attack, and black is completely winning because queen d4 is probably gonna happen if you choose to defend the bishop like this, right? So here, he can't take my rook. And he takes like a lot of time here. Like I have 9 minutes left, he has 13 minutes left. And he's like, he has an only move. So like, why is he taking time? And when your opponent has an only move and is thinking about it, this is when you have to double your calculation on their time because it's as if your time is running. It's as if it's your move. You have to do your best to lock in and play the best against this move right here. Which explains why my next move is so quick. It's like, I think I gained 30 seconds on the clock. That means it's a 2-second move. So he told me after the game, the first thing he told me, he said, why didn't you play bishop f3? I said, Juan, what? And when we were walking down the hall, I said, bishop f3 is not working? It's the first thing I would have looked at. And it was the first thing I would have looked at. I also looked at bishop takes g2, because it's both moves that are discovered attacks on this queen, so it's the juicy moves. He said, why didn't you play this? It's losing. I can't believe he missed this as a grandmaster, and I saw it. It's just like, low-key, it's an ego boost. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to work on getting an ego, because you have to be egoless when you play chess. But how can you not after something like that? So here, white has this, which I saw. You sack the queen, and you win the rook, and you're threatening rook c8, and this bishop is garbage, and it's just, like, the bishop moves to defend mate, and then, like, I don't know, rook takes, or knight takes, rook b1. Oh yeah, true, rook b1. Not even taking the pawn. And white has 2 rooks for the queen. In an endgame, that's at least better for white. And white is, in fact, better here. So anyways, I have rook d4. That's what I went with. It was like a 30-second turn, and we're like trying to get to move 40. So we're playing very fast. We're down on time. He has 6 minutes, I have 8 minutes. Rook d4 is why e3 looked nice to me, because the rook is deflected off this f4 square. So the rook goes to e2, and now this is a weak pawn, and this is a weak pawn. We trade these pawns. It's roughly equal. I can't really win this now, because too many blunders. So queen e1, and then I take, rook takes, he gains a tempo here because he's threatening rook e8. He was very happy about this. I was like, this is normal because it just helps my attack, but he seemed very happy about this. And then he goes knight g3. And so my whole plan with this Alekhine's gun, which is when you have 2 rooks and a queen on a file just bolstering through, and I have a bishop, I have pretty good activity. It's completely equal. Pawn structure is completely equal. We have the same amount of pieces, but I have more activity. So I have compensation for the pawn I lost earlier. Here, knight g3, and I was like, okay, he's going out of some threats with like queen d4 and sacking here on f1 in the future. He's getting out of trouble. And so I was like, I should probably try rook f2, but there's knight e4, forking my pieces, and I don't like that. So here I go like, why don't I take up the e4 square and threaten rook f2? So because I have the better piece activity and everything, I'm only thinking for me. And so I go with knight c5 with 4 minutes on the clock. And on his turn, I'm like, oh, I blundered again. It happens to the best of us. And it's a warm-up for the future rounds. I just blundered a fork, like knight h5, forking 2 of my pieces. And yeah, it's tough. It's tough, knight h5. And on his turn, when I saw knight h5 and I'm like, okay, he's gonna play it and I'm lost, I'm like, oh my god. Oh my god! I can sacrifice my queen. And I'm looking through the variations. And YouTube, I swear on my life, I'm like, is this actually working? Am I gonna sacrifice my queen against not only a grandmaster, but a guy who beats Michael Tal? I'm sacking my queen against the guy who beat Michael Tal. Life goals, life goals, life goals. So he plays knight h5, and I sack my queen. Rook f2! And the goal, you see the eval bar, obviously, but the goal is that on knight takes, rook takes check, king here. Rook takes c2 with a discovered check, and now knight e4. And after rook takes c1, I thought I was pretty comfortable here. Queen takes and knight takes. And low key, you know, if there's a blunder, I played this checkmate against Witty Alien after sacrificing my queen on h3. I have this nice little checkmate here, knight h3. It's a double check, it's forced, it's very nice. But yeah, he would have to keep the rook on h3. And overall here, it's sufficient compensation, it's equal. And after the game, my friend Kostya is, he's in the analysis room, he's like, one question. What if king f1? And then me and Juan Beron Lopez, we start laughing because it's the stupidest move. And we're like, well, just rook takes f3. I play it so fast. I'm like, Kostya. My friend Kostya is an IM. I'm like, Kostya, international master, what are you doing here? And he goes, rook f3. White is winning. White is winning. White is winning. I can't take with the bishop because it's mate. And I referred to these back rank problems earlier in the video. These are serious back rank problems because otherwise it would be winning for me. Rook takes f3, now king takes. And you let the discovery happen, king moves. Let's say here, rook takes, and I'm losing. We actually thought in the analysis room that black can hold a draw here. It's completely losing. We were like, one IM, two GMs looking at the board, and we were all agreeing that this is a draw. No, it's winning for white. So actually this queen sack doesn't work. But he has 1 minute on the clock, so do I. He plays rook e2, fumbling, like he's like shaking while playing the move. Rook e2 prevents like this check. And so now I go like takes, it's forced, my queen is attacked, and I go queen g5. After the game, in the analysis room, once again, my friend, international master Kostya, goes, one question. What if queen d4 check, which I saw, and then I was like, but then just king h1, and I can't go rook f2, which is the winning seeming move, because of queen e8 checkmate in 2 moves. And then he goes queen f2. And I go, and I turn my head. Kind of like F you, Kostya. Queen f2 is threatening mate, so it's a really serious move. It forces this trade, and now white doesn't seem to have a defense. And actually, this can win if my opponent fumbles from here on out. There's one defense, and we didn't really see it during the analysis room. And then a silent voice from behind me goes, what if knight g3? What if knight g3? And then Juan is just like, like rook takes. And then he goes, bishop e4. And Juan and I are like, what? And the voice behind me was Victor Michalewski, the grandmaster, who was silent the entire analysis. He must have been there like 20 minutes before he first said. And what he said was absolutely gold. It's the only way white defends this and saves the game for themselves. And the idea is that after knight takes, king takes, knight takes, king takes, and this is a draw. Like h6, I'll bring my bishop here. You can never enter, it's a fortress, and it's a draw. Absolutely wild, knight g3 resource. So probably on queen f2, with a few moves to spare until that bonus 30 minutes comes in, it's hard to spot this knight g3, I think. And I think actually I might have won this if I found queen f2. Practically it's very strong. Anyways, I went queen g5, and after rook here, if he goes like a bad move, I have bishop takes g2. Like I have some tactics still. Even though it's completely equal, I have some tactics still. Queen takes and I would win a pawn here, right? So he goes rook f1 and I kind of have to trade. He's threatening mate now and I'm threatening a last tactic. It's starting to rain. I'm finishing up the video. And then he goes knight g3 and now I see a draw and I look for better, like knight f4 would be better, but then he has bishop e4 and like g2 is not weak anymore. It's completely equal. So I just say to myself, Zach, take the draw. I force the draw. I play queen c5, threatening, forking these two pieces. Queen f2 is the only defense. And after taking this queen, I have the queen in my hand. Before pressing on the clock, I offer a draw. Before pressing my clock, I press my clock and he goes. And that, my friends, is the first time, I think I've played 3 or 4 GMs. It's the first time I don't lose against a GM in my life. It's the first draw or win against a grandmaster. And round 1, we start off with a bang. I draw a grandmaster, head into round 2. Tomorrow, I'm playing a FIDE master. See you then.